What's up, Renegade Nation? Before we begin the video, I'd like to give a big shout out to our most recent Patreon supporters: Ultralink, King of Nightmares, Colton, Justin Reitzman, Juan Garcia, Firelight FS, Mike Camp, Cregan, Robert Hagen, Eric Sneed, The Martin, Hassan Rao, Janier, Crad Veron, Agam Boulder, Bubba Monocle, Gino, Caracas, Evil Twin 01, Lifesguard, and Ross Lingard. Thank you all very much for your support, and if you want to support us on Patreon, feel free to click the link below to find out more. We'll see you there. So Jake, you had cable TV growing up, right?
Yes. At my mother's, we had, I think, like 60-something channels, big black box in the living room.
Yeah.
And then at my my pawpaw's house, he only had an antenna, so he had 2 channels, 5 and 11. So yeah, I've been in most situations, kind of.
My parents, when we lived way back in the sticks, I've said this before. I did not experience the internet until I was 13, and I was aware of computers because when I went to school, we had computers and everything, but we couldn't really get on the internet. I didn't know what the internet was. And then when I was around 13, they finally ran like extra phone lines back there, and we were able to hook up an internet line. And I remembered looking at pictures on there of I think it was I remembered it was pictures of like dogs and cats and everything on there, and I was amazed that I was seeing these images that weren't like in a book or anything like that.
I can look up all my video game cheat codes.
Oh,
that's what I did.
When I figured that out, I was just like, oh.
And then I seen pictures of games that I didn't know existed. I was like,
I didn't have to go to like a video game magazine to figure out the cheat codes and all that, because that's what I did.
Yeah,
for some of them. I went in there with like a pen, with like a pencil and a piece of paper, and
right,
I was just like, I would stand back there in the section, look, see if anyone was looking.
Well, I was
like,
waiting
flip
on
to
my
the
mom
page.
to do her slow ass Christmas shopping, so I'll be sitting over writing down the whole book. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh,
Looking
crazy
at the
stuff.
pictures of, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
there's a Mega Man X4 coming out. Holy crap!
Yeah.
And it's for the PlayStation.
I remembered when I was 9 years old, my mom and my dad got me a subscription to Nintendo Power, and it lasted for 1 year. And do you know what the last magazine for Nintendo Power was?
Oh, it was like...
No. The last Nintendo Power magazine that I received.
Oh, no.
You know what game it was for?
What?
Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Nice.
I got that. I saw it was a double issue too. It was like super thick, and I'm like,
is the reveal issue? Because that game was delayed a lot.
Well, it was. No, it was actually the release issue. It was the one that hyped the release. And I'm just like flipping through, and I'm just like, oh my gosh,
Because
oh my gosh.
when they announced the game, like they didn't even have the game.
And then they were talking, and then of course they were also talking like Earthbound 64. When's Earthbound 64 happening? Never. That's right, Earthbound 64 never happened.
A few games that never came out.
Yeah, and then of course there was Forsaken, there was Hexen, there were all these ports for N64 games, and then of course there was one on the horizon that I had no idea about. I think it was Super Smash Brothers, which, good God, that game! I never in my wildest imagination would have ever thought that game would be as good as it is. And it stands the test of time. It's still a great game.
I still love Super Smash Brothers. I get a little lost on some of the new characters, though. There's a lot of my...
That's fine.
I can't keep up with every franchise and recognize every character. So it's like I'll see who it is, and I look at what it's from, and I'm like, oh, I've never even played that game.
How happy were you that they added Mega Man?
Oh, I was ecstatic.
Well,
when you can get Zero. Oh.
And I know that you'd be hyped as hell if they would add in X.
Oh yeah,
Mega Man and then Mega Man X.
Mega Man X and give me the controllers of like say Mega Man X4. Oh man, I'll be just annihilating shit all over.
Well, you can actually. That's actually an interesting thing. You can actually you play that on Super Nintendo, right?
Yeah. Well, Super Nintendo and PlayStation.
Okay. Well, if you want the wireless controllers that are much like those SNES controllers like that, I have the wireless ones, and they actually hook up to the Switch, And
Oh,
if you
wow.
want to, you can actually use that to fight as Mega Man and Mega Man X.
Really, it's just the abilities, the dash and the dash jump, and then the wall climb.
Well,
and
it's
then your uppercut abilities like up and triangle, down right up triangle, down right triangle. Down right shoot, down right dash. Those little combinations that Zero would get, and X4 to use those abilities on the fly real fast instead of having to go through a menu, because Mega Man has to go through like a menu and select his weapon and use it, which
and Zero never had to do that.
no, when it got to Zero with Mega Man X 4, 5, and 6, shit, I would be flying through those games.
Yeah. Well, and also his sword is
bro.
ridiculous too.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. You can use the SDC combo and just destroy shit. I love being able to use abilities and just on the fly instead of having to go through a menu and set it to a hotkey and bind it. And it's like, it's aggravating. Just let me use a button combination. Kind of like how Mortal Kombat does it, but I'm not talking about a 15 button combination. I'm talking about like a 2 to 3 button combination.
Well, yeah, and it can get like that. Well, my main point that I was making with discussing stuff like this was that back in the day it was a lot more difficult to get information.
Yes.
And I actually, for the first few years of my life, I remember we didn't have cable. We actually had an antenna. And I think it was like 6 or 7 years old when we finally got cable ran back there. And it was awesome because I was able to watch like the Disney Channel, and I was able to watch Nickelodeon and
much
Cartoon
more
Network.
informed about the world, when you have television, you're a lot more informed about it. You're familiar with the shows that are out, like you're familiar with what's relevant. If you grew up your whole life without cable and whole life without seeing like social societies, you'll kind of grow up very
It's a culture shock
in a weird way. And then when you get around to reality, it's gonna be like, oh, what do I do?
Yeah.
What are these people talking about? And some people choose to live like that. They don't like anything new.
No, I get that.
I don't need no internet now. Like every family in the world's got internet.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that growing up.
Well, my dad and my stepmom they subsist off the internet. That my stepmom especially, because her job requires her to have the internet all the time. My dad works on the railroad, but he still requires internet for his email and everything. Their biggest concern is just privacy, in which I've showed them how to do like VPNs and stuff like that, and I've also hooked them up with how to get a cipher box, that new technology that encrypts your internet connection and protects you from stuff. Yeah, one of those, and I showed them how to do it. And they were just like, okay, that's like, we'll do that. And needless to say, if you don't have the internet and you don't have cable growing up or anything like that, you miss out on stuff. But Odd1sOut, aka James from Odd1sOut, has some stories about growing up without cable. Let's see what happens.
Imagine if Netflix, YouTube, and Hulu never existed. What would you be watching right now? Would you be watching this? I don't think so. You'd be watching this box right here. A television? On this device, instead of picking what you wanted to watch and when you wanted to watch it, the television would decide all that for you. And instead of watching a single 5-second skippable ad in the beginning, you'd have to watch 5 30-second long unskippable ads. Can you think of anything more annoying? An advertisement right in the middle of your show? I don't know if my parents are being cheap or trying to discourage an unhealthy habit of watching too much TV, but growing up, my parents didn't have cable television at all in the house. Now, in this modern day and age of online content, some of you are living perfectly content lives without cable. I know I am. But you have to understand, in the early 2000s, online video wasn't a thing. Yeah, YouTube was created in 2005, but what did that have? This guy at a zoo? That's lame. So
literally, the first video ever posted on YouTube is literally a shit post. That's it. It's literally a shit post. That's the funniest thing about YouTube. That's the funniest thing.
You had to get your cartoons through the TV. And if your parents didn't pay $65 a month to get cable, then you didn't get the channels with SpongeBob, Jimmy Neutron, or Courage the Cowardly Dog. The only thing you got was this green brother and sister called PBS Kids. And whatever these things were. PBS Kids stands for Public Broadcasting Service. Kids, that meant all the shows on PBS Kids were government or privately funded. So the shows on PBS didn't really have any commercials per se, but they did have the same sponsorship ads that would play a message before every show. If you grew up on PBS Kids, then Juicy Juice and Where a Kid Can Be a Kid is just engraved in your memory.
Yeah.
And also, every show would thank you, the viewer, for watching, and I think that's really nice. So, everyone watching this, you're welcome. I'm kinda glad my parents didn't buy cable, because instead of spending hours of my time watching mindless television, I spent hours of my time watching television with morals and math. Yep, a lot of shows on PBS were either educational or taught you how to be a good person. The shows I'm gonna mention had pretty crazy concepts, but the conflicts in each episode were very down-to-earth and slice-of-life-y, almost like the shows were made for children. Like in Clifford the Big Red Dog. It's a show about this girl's dog who grew up to be the size of a freaking house for no reason except for the fact that the girl loved the dog so much that he grew up to be a monster. So that means if your dog is normal-sized, you don't love it enough. And it probably doesn't love you. So, yeah, a giant red dog is a pretty weird premise, but the episodes were about everyday things. Like this blue dog feels bad that he tore up his owner's sweater, and his friends tell him to just be honest, and he does, and everyone's happy. Or the episode where this new dog moves into town, but he's missing a leg, and then Clifford and his friends have to learn that having 3 legs still means you can accomplish a lot of things any normal human can do. I mean, dog. And I rate this show a 10 out of 10. Next is Dragon Tales, the show that made dragons kid-friendly. There's Org, he's the biggest, not so brave of heart. There's Cassie, she's so shy, but so very smart. There's Zach and Wheezy and their tales of fun, cause you know 2 heads are better
than one.
Dragon Tales, it's almost time for Dragon
James,
Tales. The show was
easy.
pretty similar to Clifford. The characters would spend an episode learning everyday things like how to do a cartwheel, or they would try to make it rain so they could show their friend what a rainbow looks like. And there was also this grandpa dragon who knew Spanish for some reason.
Don't come too close, niños.
And that wasn't the weirdest thing on the show, actually. There was also a dragon character in a wheelchair, which, just like Clifford, is a good character because it teaches kids that disabled people are still people who can accomplish a lot of things. But I think it's a weird combination of 2 things. A dragon, a mythical beast known for destroying cities, in a wheelchair?
I would have just had it where the dragon does not have wings.
Well, I think his wings are too small.
Well,
but then again, he can still walk.
Yeah.
So
I think without wing, but you see, the thing is,
or just one wing,
one
wing.
just one wing, or
one wing dragon.
Well, and the thing is, I never had to deal with understanding that there were handy-capable people, capable of, like, great things. My grandfather was disabled. My grandfather was disabled for the majority of his life. He was paralyzed at the age of 29 and died at 71 a few years ago. And my entire life that I knew him, I never thought of him as a person who was less. I never thought of him as a person who could not do anything. He, like, honestly, when they didn't have wheelchair ramps outside of the high school where my mom graduated from, he collapsed. He got out of his wheelchair, sat on the ground, collapsed his wheelchair down, threw it up the stairs, which was I think it was 8 or 9 steps, and then pushed himself up the steps, each one, got his wheelchair back, collapsed it, put the little cushion back in, got right back up in it, rolled his way in there to watch my mom graduate high school.
That's legendary.
Yeah, my granddad was a tough guy. Both of both sides of my grandparents, they didn't get along that much because both of them were very controlling. But that was more on my grandma's side. My grandmother on my mom's side was very controlling, very domineering, and she did not like my mom listening to rock and roll. As a matter of fact, she destroyed almost every record my mom bought one night in a binge, thinking that it was the devil's music. That included Van Halen's Jump, AC/DC's Back in Black, and a bunch of other disco stuff that my mom liked. But hey, she kept her Conway Twitty. Why? I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against Conway Twitty, but Also, my grandmother on my dad's side was also very domineering, and if she's not in control of something, she goes crazy. Like
I noticed that wheelchair is missing a post on the left arm.
You're right.
It's
Yeah,
down
it's
at the bottom. It
no,
shows like we're at the bottom of that.
No, right here, yeah, because it goes all the way down here, but it's missing right here. Y'all seeing that?
Sorry, I always notice.
No, yeah.
And the back of the chair too, at that little corner.
Yeah,
it shows that, but it's just in a weird.
Yeah, it's like the one that's
perspective.
on this side is good, but the one that's over here is not.
Yep.
That
It's not quite at such that harsh.
no,
angle.
it's just a little animation, like a little animation error, but still, this guy does great work.
Yeah,
James always does great
definitely
work.
does great work.
Sorry,
I just noticed it because we're paused on this frame. You'd never
Yeah.
notice it if it wasn't.
sorry, I
on
went off on my little tangent. Sorry, I went off
Oh,
on my
good.
little tangent there, but yeah, my granddad was a great man, and I'm glad to have known him.
If you wanted to stop a dragon from destroying your city, then you just don't install wheelchair ramps anywhere. I should stop talking. I rate the show a 10 out of 10. Now let's talk about Arthur. Here's some fun trivia.
Arthur the
Arthur
Aardvark.
is supposed to be an aardvark. Personally, I don't see it. Basically, it was a show about Arthur and his other furry friends learning lessons, but Arthur tended to tackle more serious subjects than the other two shows.
Yes.
Like, they have episodes where DW hears her parents get in a fight and she worries about them getting a divorce, or the episode where Arthur Falcon punches his little sister, and even having to deal with someone you know getting cancer.
What? Cancer?
The character gets treatment and lives, by the way, because it's a kid's show. 10 out of 10. Next, let's talk about my favorite show on PBS Kids, Cyber Chase. Cyber Chase, we're moving, we're beating Hacker at his game. Don't come in we'll get him every time. This show didn't teach kids morals or how to properly treat the disabled. It taught them something far more important. Math. Cyber Chase is set inside a virtual computer world,
Like
and this
that.
one character named Motherboard was supposed to be the queen/protector of this world, but she sucks at her job because the villain of the show, Christopher Lloyd, infects her with a virus. So now these three kids have to go on adventures using math principles to thwart the bad guy's plans to save Motherboard. Motherboard.
That clap was awesome.
We need to save Mommy Boy. And unlike all the other shows, this show had an overarching story. The kids would always get this close to saving Motherboard, but nothing they did worked. When I was a kid, I always wondered how much longer it would be until they finally saved her. And they never did. The show's been going on for 16 years, and they're still learning new math principles trying to save Motherboard. I think they're at calculus at this point. The show
Jesus.
is teaching you slower than an actual school. What kind of a show makes you wait 16 years for a conclusion? Cyber Chase does, and it's one of the best shows ever created. 10 out of 10. One last show I want to bring up is called Caillou. All you need to know about Caillou is that
All you need to know about Caillou is this little shit complains until he gets what he wants. Same thing with Peppa Pig.
I've never seen it.
Be thankful. Be very
I've
thankful.
never seen Peppa Pig either.
I hate him. Caillou is a 4-year-old and a demon. He constantly throws a tantrum whenever he doesn't get his way. Even in his theme song, he mentions how much of a brat he is. Growing up is not so tough, except when I've had enough. And then he's crying like a child. Well, you're gonna have to grow up, Caillou. The world doesn't revolve around you. Now, you might be thinking, James, this kid is 4 years old. Of course he's gonna be a brat. And I agree, but a big problem with
No.
Caillou isn't the fact that he's a brat, but it's with his spineless parents. Caillou's mom just lets him get away with everything. Whenever
no.
I misbehaved, you know what happened to me? I had to go sit in the timeout corner.
Oh, you're lucky, James.
you're lucky.
You're lucky.
I can't say on camera what happened.
Oh, I got my ass whipped with a switch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hot Wheels tracks. For
Yeah,
me.
not Hot Wheels tracks. That was another one too. Another one, a coat hanger. Another time, a flip flop.
Whatever they get a hold of.
Oh yeah, my mom threw a tire iron at me. She threw a tire. Now, don't get me wrong, I deserved it because I threw one of her decorative what's that material? Porcelain, like decorative porcelain balls. I threw it at her, and she chucked. I think I was like 12 or 13 at the time, and I chucked that at her, and she chucked that thing right back at me.
Oh,
And I remember
that
it hitting the door frame beside my head, like right here. All of a sudden, I chuck the porcelain ball. It goes, shatters into 1,000 pieces. All of a sudden, I hear, ping! Like, and then all of a sudden, she's just like, get out! And I'm like, I was just like, oh my God, what have I done? And I don't remember why I threw the porcelain ball in the first place. I just know that I did it because I was apparently being a brat. And you don't reward bratty behavior with coddling.
Stop it every single time.
Yeah.
Don't let any of it
Oh
slide.
God,
Once
dude,
any of it
that's
slides,
just like more recently. At one of my actually a family get together yesterday. My niece Trinity was playing with this little Lazy Susan thing that they had on the dinner table, and there's this vase of there's this gigantic vase with these glass marbles in the bottom with like fake decorative stuff at the top, and she was told about 10 times to not spin it. Don't spin that. Don't spin that. No, don't spin that. Don't do it. Don't do that. Don't spin that. Don't spin it. Don't spin that.
Tell somebody more than once, and that's it.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. They told her this, and she still spun it, and me and Mom and Ashley and Kristen were hanging out outside, and all of a sudden we just hear, we look back, and there she is sitting on the table with her hand on the Lazy Susan, and she looks up. I go inside, and she's like, it fell over, and I'm like, no, it didn't. You spun this around, didn't you? She's like, no, I didn't. I'm like, yeah, you did. You spun. Get over there on the couch. And then all of a sudden, Kristen comes in, her mom. And Kristen's just like, Trinity, what did we tell you? She's like, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was going to do that. And she's like, how many times did we tell you to stop doing that? She's like, 1. No. We told you, like Ethan came over, and Ethan, her dad, he was just like, we told you 10 times to not touch that.
Well, even if they did tell her once is it. That's all you get.
Yeah. And that's the thing though. I mean, you can't discipline your kids nowadays like you used to.
You can. You just
make sure no cameras are on you.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
I'm not saying beat your kids. That's not what I'm saying.
No. There's a difference.
You can discipline the hell out of your kids.
There is a difference between abuse and discipline. There's a fine line between it, and it's not. And it's honestly no one's business. George Lopez had probably the funniest one I've ever heard. He was just like, when they were out in public and everything, his mom was very sneaky with how she disciplined him.
Oh,
all of a sudden, she was just like, I know, mija, all these people out here are watching, but they can't see us in the dressing room. Come on, let's get some clothes. Let's try to. You get in the dressing room, all of a sudden, just.
So typically, my punishments would usually depending on how severe, would typically consist of an ass busting, a groundment, and work. So guess who got to mow all 11 acres? Me.
Oh.
If I messed up, I got to do every bit of it by myself.
Didn't have to mow 11 acres.
I had to get it done by a certain time, or else I'd have to mow it again next 2 weeks.
I did not have to mow the lawn, but I did have to rake leaves. Oh, and also,
they just put me to work. I mean, that was the thing. Is like I get in trouble. It was like, oh, well, I guess you're working for free this week. And
yeah,
you work. No allowance, groundment, no games, nothing.
Oh,
school work.
You want to know what my parents did for like a solid year? Whenever I failed 2 of my classes. They took away my Super Nintendo. They went up and they grabbed my Super Nintendo, and they grabbed my PlayStation. And they took it down into their closet, and they put it up in their shelves, and they kept it there for 6 months. And I was finally able to get it back when I got my grades back up. And then, by that point...
Yeah, I always had to earn my stuff back.
Yeah, I did too. I did too.
I had to work to get my stuff back.
Yeah.
She would take away stuff too. That, or sometimes if I didn't take care of my stuff, whatever, she'd get rid of it for good. She'd take it to Goodwill.
And then of course there's the whole TV thing too. The whole TV, she took the cable out of my room and everything, and me, I just went and found a new cable and plugged it up, because I was a sneaky little brat. You know what she does? She comes up, unplugs the TV from my wall, and snips the cable from the TV, and I'm like,
you just ruined the TV.
And no, because my dad knew how to fix it. My dad knew how to fix it, but she knew I wouldn't be able to do anything because she then takes the plug and took it downstairs, and I'm just like, well, crap.
So, well, there's that.
Yep. Anyway, back to the video.
You know what happens to Caillou? Nothing. Not once does Caillou ever get punished. It's always his mom just being like, Caillou, what you said wasn't very nice. Now go behave, okay? 0 out of 10 with the show with just the humans. I hate it.
I love his One Punch Man.
One Punch Man.
I just realized that all the shows I mentioned were animated, but there was a lot of non-animated shows that I still watched. But whatever, I could just.
Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street?
Now, as a die-hard PBS fanboy, I think I speak for everyone when I say that what PBS was missing was a crossover episode. How hard would it have been for the Clifford people and the Dragon Tales people to coordinate an episode where the three-legged dog finds the dragon scale, he could dig it up out of the sand because dogs like to dig, except this dog wouldn't be that good at digging, and then he would meet up with the wheelchair dragon and they could be best friends. I would have loved that. As much as I'm joking about it, as a kid, I actually really wanted a crossover episode between the shows Clifford and Clifford's Puppy Days, which is another show that follows Clifford before he was interesting, when he was tiny, so before Emily Elizabeth loved him. So there was a bunch of new characters that all knew Clifford when he was little, and the two shows existed in the same universe, so it wouldn't have been that unbelievable for Clifford to visit his childhood home, and then all the other characters who used to call him Small or Squirt would see him now and be like, wow! What the f*** happened to you? You see, it's funny because it's a kid's show and you wouldn't expect them to say that. I waited patiently for that crossover episode.
Never happened.
But it never came. But at least I have fan fiction. George, he wagged his tail and smiled. Clifford, it's so good to see you. He nuzzled him as a greeting.
No.
Nice to see you too. It's been over 7 years since I last saw you. Yeah, it had, Clifford said happily. George turned his back to the hill. Here I come. No quotation marks, by the way. He got ready to tackle him. He punched George off, and they rolled down. Then, when they got to the bottom, George pinned Clifford, who was panting. The three looked at the two of them, who seemed to be having a staring contest, so they decided to go somewhere else. Both laughed, and Clifford got off of him. He sat down and waited for George to stand up. So, what are we gonna do? The red dog said while quickly getting into a playing position. Okay, that's enough. Hello, everyone. I'm Jack. Did any of you watch these shows as a kid? That's cool, I guess.
I actually didn't watch any of those.
I didn't
I'm
post
familiar with
anything
them,
at all in the
but
month
I'm more familiar with the little kids' books.
I was familiar with Cyber Chase, not as much. Caillou because of my nephews. They watched it a little bit, and then when I was just like, Ash, you shouldn't let them watch this. Like, watch Caillou. Watch one episode and tell me what's wrong. And then all of a sudden Ash is just like, yeah, we're not watching Caillou anymore. And then, of course, there was also friggin' Dragon Tales. We did like Dragon Tales. I remembered watching it a little bit with my nephews and being like, hey, this is a pretty cute show. This is pretty nice. I like this. And then, of course, there was the live action ones, Sesame Street, which, you talk about serious subject matters. The Mr. Hooper one still gets me to this day. Did you ever hear about Mr. Hooper off of Sesame Street? Mr. Hooper was the mailman who regularly came around dropping off mail and giving advice and everything.
My mom pretty much chose what I watched. Yeah, it went from childhood. I remember Barney. Oh my God, it was awful. But Barney,
I love you. You love.
Oh Jesus! But anyways, and then Go Power Rangers.
Yeah. Go Power Rangers.
Yeah, I was all into that shit. And then, but there was also some more niche ones that I found. The animated series of Mega Man.
Yes.
The cartoon.
Yes,
yeah, it's very cringy now, but as a kid, I loved that show because I played the games too. The original on the NES.
Do you remember the Sonic the Hedgehog animated shows? There were two of them.
The one on Disney?
The one that was on USA was dumb.
Yeah, it was pretty dumb.
The one that was on Disney, like at Saturday and also like Saturday mornings in the AM, was actually really good. It had a really good story.
Cartoons at night though. The only mornings we watched Saturday morning cartoons was Kids WB, and then that's why I was into Pokemon because that was my next thing. And then once they started previewing Yu-Gi-Oh, I was like, oh, I've got some of those cards. Those Japanese cards I bought from the flea market. Because I had a bunch of them. They were all Japanese, and we always made up our own rules with them. And then they actually had a show. I was like, that's how that card game's played? And then
it's time to duel!
Yeah. Grandpa! I'll steal your grandpa's soul. It was a very kind of dark show.
I will banish you to the Shadow Realm.
But it was...
Good stuff.
That's when we got the English versions. And it was like, oh, these things got rules. I read that rule book over and over and over. Then the rules changed a lot. And
then they banned certain cards, like Pot of Greed.
The games didn't play exactly like the card game did. I had a couple of the games for PlayStation 1 and Game Boy Advance.
I just remember Exodia. Obliterate! And then you just win the game. Yep. There's a friend of mine who has an Exodia deck.
I had an Exodia deck. Yeah.
Oh my god!
It was all defensive deck.
Yep.
It relied on the chance of drawing those. So basically, a lot of the cards was just like discard this card and draw 2 cards. I'm like, okay, cool. That way I can draw 2 more. And
then all of a sudden,
you get that, you're done.
all of a sudden, the left arm, the right arm, the legs, and then the head. Boom!
You
dead.
win.
You win. Game over.
But then they pretty much they had a lot of. Tournaments and stuff started banning cards like that, and they like Pot of Greed. They started banning that.
I remember that. Yeah.
Swords of Revealing Light, banning that. Jinzo, ban that. It's like, you know what? If all my cards are gonna be banned due to this stuff, I was like, then I can't make any strategical decks without having to just play the battle game. You know?
Yeah. The thing is, if you want, you shouldn't ban cards. You should instead rework the game to work to where those cards aren't so overpowered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was...
If anything, that's what you should do.
Not the most balanced right out the gate, I guess. They didn't really, I guess, predict that it was going to be a big money-making tournament series. Like
oh,
Magic.
My gosh.
Magic's kind of the same way, and they've got cards banned for that, too.
Yeah, I remember the different series of Yu-Gi-Oh! There was also one where it was like a high school one where you'd wore different colored uniforms. Like,
now,
freshmen were...
The comics, or I'm sorry, the mangas were never about the card game.
Oh, no.
Or about Yugi and his like high school adventures and his shadow games, because once he had the spirit of Yu-Gi-Oh,
Yami.
Basically, he would play shadow games with people, and they were really cruel games. Some of them resulted in a lot of death and blood too. So
oh yeah, when you actually
really,
go back and you read the original source material, it's just like, I
it
can't wait for the oh my god, this is terrifying.
They would have the card, like you would see some images of the card games, or like kids playing it, but it was never about the card game at all.
No,
it was more or less about Grandpa's shop and the mystical stuff that he kept inside there, which I thought was cool.
Sorry, gotta finish out the credits here.
Yeah.
May. That's because May is my birthday month, so I didn't do any work in my birthday month. No, but for real though, I've been busy working on a book. I know YouTubers have a bad reputation of making crappy books, but this one's gonna be different. This one has pictures in it. It's gonna be on sale in August, but you can pre-order it right now on Amazon, link in the description, and you'll be able to pre-order it at my booth at VidCon. And I was thinking of doing something special for the people who pre-order it at VidCon, like giving them a signed copy. Sorry if you're not going to VidCon. So if you wanted to pre-order it and you're going to VidCon, wait to pre-order it there. Also, sorry for the people not going to VidCon. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go to VidCon. I don't think I ever officially announced that. I'm gonna make a dedicated video next officially announcing the book, and I'll talk more about it there, so cool. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the amazing people who helped color the pictures in this video. You should check them out. They're all very talented artists. Shout out to Declan, and wear your seatbelt.
Well, there you go. He always finishes off with, and don't forget to wear your seatbelt. Always. Because he's gotta be, you know, supportive somehow. So yeah, the whole thing with growing up without cable, I still was involved with PBS and all that. I remember Barney, like you were talking about.
God, yeah.
And then I remember when they kept adding new characters. There was Barney, of course, and then there was Bebop.
Yeah, my mom just had a ton
Or
of
Baby Bop.
Yeah,
Sorry.
she had a ton of VHS tapes that would have old shows on it, like the Incredible Hulk, like all of it.
Wait, you mean like the live action one?
Yeah.
Oh, with Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah.
That sad theme.
The old Superman cartoons. You know, I'm talking about the.
Oh yeah, the 1930s and 40s serials where
black and white and. Believe it or not, she had a VHS set of what was it? Wonder Dog. Am I saying it right? It's the hound dog that runs. It's basically like
Underdog.
Superman. Underdog, yeah.
It's like Underdog.
Yeah, it's basically like Superman, except it was a dog.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember
Batman. And a lot of the old Batmans, and I pretty much watched a lot of those VHS tapes over and over and over and over. And sometimes buy more and watch. I just watched a lot of movies too. VHS was.
I remember
the primary source of entertainment.
There was several that I had. There was Fox Kids, which was pretty much ruled by Batman the Animated Series. I remember the hell out of it. It was just like, because, Fox was where, that's where they had Power Rangers. That's where they had Batman the Animated Series. That's where they had Darkwing Duck. Darkwing Duck was on ABC, sorry. But they had so many, great shows and everything. And I also remember Toonami when I was a teenager. Yeah. Toonami was my jam. Yeah. Toonami was
whenever I discovered Dragon Ball Z, it was kind of all over. Pokemon wasn't much of a fad anymore.
No, it wasn't. I remember
and stuff like that.
Gosh, I remember there was actually a rift that formed in my community, or in my that I hung out with in middle school. Half the kids went to Dragon Ball Z, and half the kids stayed with Pokemon.
Yeah,
and it's just like, dude, can you believe this evolution and all that and what happened in the show? And meanwhile, the Dragon Ball Z kids are talking like, dude, can you believe he turned into a giant ape and tried to kill Goku?
Yeah,
and I was just like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Yeah,
I remember the episode when he turned into a Super Saiyan for the first time. That we were at our school just hype as fuck about that.
Yeah.
We were like, what?
Oh, I remember that. I remember reading a bunch of people's predictions, like Frieza's gonna kill Goku, but Frieza's gonna die anyway somehow. Gohan's gonna kill him or something. And then all of a sudden,
I remember the next episode. The first episode of pretty much the next season, when Frieza comes back and he's
the cybernetic parts and everything,
and then Trunks gets shown for the first time and
turns him into cold cuts,
slices him in the shit, and then just blows his. It was like, well, Frieza didn't make that last long in this season.
Nope.
But we didn't know who the villain was, so it was like, okay.
Well, yeah, it was the androids, and then eventually
Dr.
Cell.
Zero.
Yeah, the androids and Cell.
Yeah.
And then, I'll never forget also when they say that's probably the most momentous occasion in all of Dragon Ball Z was when Goku turned into a Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
Because I remembered after that, everyone was saying, "Oh, dude, you gotta go Super Saiyan, man. You gotta go Super Saiyan with this stuff."
Super Saiyan 2,
yeah.
Super Saiyan 3, then Super Saiyan 4.
Yeah. Super Saiyan 4, actually, they've kind of retconned and said doesn't exist anymore because GT's not really a thing
Some people
that counts
don't consider
anymore.
canon, GT canon. I liked GT, though.
I did not.
I liked it. It was definitely a big turn, but to me, it was still better than the Buu saga. I didn't like the Buu saga at all.
Well, the Buu saga, I had my problems with. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say spoilers, but
it's a show that's 20 years old.
Yeah, okay. Well, they destroy pretty much almost all the good the characters, and then they bring them back. And it's like, this whole fucking season could have just been like...
Well, yeah, the whole thing was...
Yeah, I just thought the enemies were stupid, too. I thought Boo was stupid.
Cell was early on,
yeah.
No, early on, Boo was very stupid whenever he was big and fat.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, when he split in two, and then all of a sudden, his more evil side got a hold of him. And then, after everything was all said and done, when Kid Buu came out, it was just like, who the hell is this? And then Kid Buu turns out is the most primal form of Boo, who honestly has no sense of what is.
My favorite character in the whole show is in the GT series, Vegito. which is Vegeta's side of
Oh,
the
Vegito still
Goku
exists.
transformation.
No, Vegito actually.
Gogeta was really silly and goofy. He was
No,
more
no,
Goku side,
Vegito was in the Buu saga.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, it's
Vegito
been a long
was
time. It's
like
been a
that
long
was the
time, my
earrings.
bad.
Whenever
Yeah.
they combine with the earrings, that's Vegito. Whereas whenever they combine with the dance,
Yeah, that's right,
that's
that's right.
Gogeta.
I forgot. It's been a while. My bad.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But
But yeah, he was badass. Like I was like, because I've always liked Vegeta too. Because I mean, I like more dark characters, I guess.
I personally loved Vegeta's like transformation that he went through in the Buu saga, where he was corrupted by Babidi, and then and him and Goku had that epic fight in Super Saiyan 2. Like all of a sudden Goku goes Super Saiyan 2, and then Vegeta's pretty much just like, I've learned to go to that level 2, Kakarot. And they both had that big fight where during the fight, Vegeta like suspends Goku against these rocks with like these rings around his wrist. Yeah. Goku breaks free and then breaks the boulders off over Vegeta's head, and the fight continues. It's just like, damn, so cool. And then
I like violent shows, I guess too.
I like.
You know what the most violent intro for any kids show is? Mega Man. It's nothing but death and destruction, like bombs, just explosions, cities being destroyed.
You make it sound,
dude. I was like, damn.
You make it sound like it's that dream sequence from Terminator 2. You remember that? Like all of a sudden, bomb goes off. Like everyone just gets deep fried, and then like the world just gets destroyed.
I mean, it kind of does show like people running from their lives and shit while bombs are going off, destroying the cities and shit, and robots are going out just shooting shit and blowing shit up, and people.
Yeah,
chaos. I liked it.
All right, well, we're gonna have to end it here, everybody. This was Growing Up Without Cable by TheOdd1sOut. Hopefully, you all enjoyed it, and hopefully, you all will. Continue to tune in. If you want to see more from Odd1sOut, the link to the original video is down below in the description. Feel free to check it out. More from James. How many subs does this dude got now? 14 million subs. Frick. That's awesome.
It's a lot. He deserves it, though.
Yeah, he does deserve it. This is great work. So, again, everybody, thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, signing off, I'm Nate.
And I'm Jacob.
We'll see you then. Peace out.